Hey guys, I want to welcome you to the weekly Wednesday for the Financial Freedom newsletter, where every week, every Wednesday, we delve into something inspirational, motivational, something excerpt taken from the Financial Freedom weekly newsletter. Wherever you are, if you're listening on Spotify, on iTunes, Google, be sure to click the like, subscribe, share, comment. And without ado, let's get into the show. Welcome everybody to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. As you know, I talk about 4 different types of freedom: time, financial, location, health, freedom. In that light, I'm always scouring the globe looking for entrepreneurs on the cutting edge, impacting the world, changing lives. So today we have Augustin, but he goes by Augie, and he's actually a digital nomad. He's a solopreneur. He's an expert in data analytics consulting. And so it's going to be a great conversation about owning your time, your freedom, your income, and your health. So I'll welcome Augie to the show. Welcome.
Thanks, Christopher. Really appreciate you having me here. As you're going to hear, I have a pretty thick accent. I was born in France. But I'm very happy to be here and very happy to talk about my experience, what I've done so far, and what the future looks like for me and in the era we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's, like I said, I actually think having an international background is actually an asset. And, I admire Europeans and Southeast Asia for their culture. So tell us more about your background, how you got started, your journey, and we'll go from there.
Well, I work in data now, but I have a pretty good original background. I don't have the nerdy background like people would think of. I have an MBA in hospitality management, so I worked in hotels and restaurants in France, and then in order to get experience, I moved to Nanjing, which is a 18 million inhabitants city, maybe 4 hours from Shanghai. And I worked in hotel and restaurant. So I did Nanjing, then I moved to Cambodia for 2 years, working for Belmont and another 5-star hotel. And then I moved to Hong Kong, where I opened a French restaurant. In between, I met my wife, and she wanted to come back to New York because she's American. So I was like, sure, let's go.
Yeah.
We've been in New York now 12 years, and I have my own. I did a few things, but I worked in the startup environment for 4 years, and now I own and manage my own data analytics consulting firm.
Yeah, this is really interesting. And so we'll talk about, sounds like, you navigated these life transitions in different countries. And tell us, because you have this excerpt, where we on Podmatch, where you talk about how COVID impacted your life positively when the world was all shut down and, everybody was locked down, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound very obnoxious saying that, but it was actually a good impact. I was commuting into Manhattan, New York City, so spending a good hour and a half in the train, going to the city, walking the city. When COVID hit, that stopped. And I was still working for a startup that did meal delivery in office space. So that went south because there was no meal delivery anymore. There was no office space. And that's how I started realizing that I can't rely on somebody else always to give me my job and my salary. So I started to exploring the skills I had on the side of my job, got a certification pretty early in data analytics, and then starting doing this at the side also. Because I still had my job and I was fairly lucky. It was just not very passionating for me. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I can do that. And it went very well for 4 months, and 5 months after I started doing a side hustle, I quit my job, and now it's been 3 years.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing. And I think, COVID was a wake-up call for the entire world. You're like, people thought they had jobs, but basically they're renting jobs, and they don't control their income or their time or anything. So
Yeah, because we were all, it's interesting. We were all stuck at home, nowhere to go. And we had, I mean, a lot of people still had work, but it was not, I don't know, I felt very alienating. Like I had to be at my desk at a certain time, do certain meetings and everything, which I do the same here. But no, I'm my own boss, and there's nobody that tells me, "Oh, you are not online at 5 p.m." I'm like, I was home, so I don't know. It was, and I was outside a lot. It was a good time for me to reflect on myself and did a lot more sports and everything. I really liked that opportunity. I don't know if I would be happy if it comes back, but I think to reflect on yourself and take a pause was very important for me to get to that time.
Yeah, the other thing is one of the another guest was talking about never letting a crisis go to waste and how she transitioned everything to digital virtual so that in person would never, if if they had to lock down everything again, she would never be affected again. So you talk about this idea from food because you were in this you were kind of in the hospitality industry and then you moved into tech and it's only like a few steps. That's quite interesting. Tell the audience more about that.
Well, I think it's a bit more than a few steps. I mean, that's the good thing about hospitality. Hospitality doesn't close doors. It's like you learn how to react with people. You need to have like good customer service skills. There's some kind of sales dimension in customer service. If I'm going to take an example, but if someone is done eating and you're like, you don't want a dessert, okay, that's sales. That's like the first step of sales. And then you have to behave and well behave and be smiling with pretty much anybody that steps into your restaurant or hotel. And that's really what I learned in hospitality. I mean, don't not all the places are like this, don't take me wrong. But what I learned in hospitality, I was like, maybe I can retranscribe these soft skills into an industry that's not used to seeing these kind of skills from people that are bred statistic and math and data. Like we have this image of someone that's in data, that's very nerdy with glasses on the computer 24/7, but that's not what I do and not what I did. So I bring that other kind of dimension to the data world, and that's really what I thrive. So I did certification. I was doing a lot of KPI reporting in my previous job, and that's how I got into it. And I was like, I like that a lot. I think it's interesting what we can take from the data, and I pushed into that direction.
Yeah. Tell us, briefly, because you have a lot about, personal development and tell us, just highlight briefly, how you got into data. You mentioned the certification. If the audience was interested in data analytics, tell them more about that.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a great world where there's a lot that can be done online for free. I mean, access to internet gives you the way to learn pretty much anything you want. If you type for "I want to learn," let's say data extraction, there's pretty much 500 videos on YouTube that tells you how to do that. You just have to take the time to learn it and never stop learning. I think that's one of the big things about the tech industry. I mean, this week and the last 2 weeks, we've seen a lot of chat GPT, but that AI chat,
Yeah.
and that's great. But that also a realization of the tech world change every week. There's a new product, and we can't keep up as human of everything that's being built and invented. But we can make sure our brain is aware of everything that's out there and learn or at least be aware of that. And that's really that. It's like read, read a lot, with a lot of your industry, with a lot of what interests you, and make a habit of that. Like it can be something you do every 6 months. It has to be something that you learn on a weekly basis. Every day, I learn something new every day.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I took it when I started doing not much hospitality, but a lot more data. I was like, I'm going to learn. And it was like 8 years since I graduated from my MBA. Then so it's weird to go back to school, but it's also very interesting.
Yeah. For the audience, sounds like you're probably Gen Z or millennial, and for some of the people coming up, they call them Gen Alphas. What would some advice for them? They're listening to this podcast that you learn from your job that you think everyone should learn at some point in their life, earlier than better.
Interesting. I'm gonna quote you. I think you said in your. I was listening to another of your podcast earlier, and you said that people can't jump in consulting right away because they should have some kind of corporate job before, and I really stand by that. I really think it's important. I worked in a restaurant, which is not very defined as corporate, but then I did work in a startup environment, and you need to be able to learn that. You need to be able to learn to work with other people. Because wherever you work from, even if you work from, let's say, a camper van in the middle of the desert, you're gonna have to work with people, and working in an office environment is gonna teach you that. Listen, I love remote work, and I do think remote work is here to stay, but there is a lot of things that remote work can teach us, and how to behave in a work environment with other people. That I think that's really one thing. It's work with clients face to face. It's how you behave as a person is goes beyond what you do as a job. Like if you're a doctor, when a patient is going to come in your office, if you're going to hide yourself or like put your face behind the screen, that's not going to work. So it's all this kind of thing that it's a lot of soft skills. Everything technical you can learn by yourself, but
Yeah.
what you learn when you are around people, there's no YouTube video that's going to tell you that.
Yeah, it's funny. I was giving a talk to undergrads and I was like, like leadership and management and empathy, what you were describing, soft skills. And I was like, you can't learn this from a book. You can't pick it up in a book and read it and, be an expert. It's something you have to develop. And, school, I think, unless you have this like Bill Gates type idea or like Steve Jobs, you kind of like school is sort of your ability to network and relate and develop social skills, work together. And then after that, if I think entrepreneurship is one of the most rewarding things, but it's not for the faint of heart. So,
Well, yeah, I think it's not for the faint of heart, but there's also, I mean, I think not everybody can be an entrepreneur, not only because it's hard, but because some people are just not made like this. And we need people to work in corporate to do what we do as entrepreneurs. So I think like we see a lot on LinkedIn these days of, do you want to be your own boss? I mean, yeah, it's amazing and I love it and I chose it, but at the same time, it's not the same. The pressure the pressure is on 24/7, and I don't know. I think you need a certain type of, I don't know. I think it's you need to be built a certain way to be an entrepreneur, but you can also be an entrepreneur and not make it your full-time basis. You can have a job and sell t-shirt on the weekend, and that can make you an entrepreneur. It
yeah,
doesn't have to be your main source of revenue. So
yeah.
when I see all this LinkedIn post of be your own boss in 24 hours, I'm like, sure, why not? But good luck with that. It's a process, and it takes, and I'm still learning how to be an entrepreneur on a daily basis. But yeah, what you said is so important for younger people who went through college or education during COVID. That's hard. I feel for them, because like learning everything, how to behave in classes and everything, you don't have this. So
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
but yeah, people need to be at some point in an office or in a work environment that's where they're not alone, in order to learn what you said and what I said earlier.
Yeah. And then you talk about, you love learning. Tell us either books, podcasts, YouTube, influential people in your life and how they impacted you.
Oh, so many. I think in the recent years, someone that I don't have his name in mind, someone that's really impacted me is the founder of Morning Brew. What's his name? He's based in Jersey. It's very bad that I don't have his name. But everybody will know the newsletter that you have on your phone at 8 a.m. every morning, Morning Brew. That guy is like approximately my age, and he worked with his mom to create that newsletter. Now he's acquiring medias and everything. And I think it's amazing. Like someone just thought, I'm gonna write a newsletter. It's gonna be my day job. I'm gonna build a team around it and make it big. I think that's great. And every entrepreneur has to come with that kind of idea. Podcast wise, any kind of self development, professional. I like to keep my horizon as broad as possible. The same way I love to be in China or Cambodia or now in the US or France. I like to keep this kind of language. It's good for my brain to listen to the language during the day. So that can be music, but that's also a podcast on mostly learning about yourself. And yeah, don't just I find someone that I find interesting every week or every day. Every day I find someone new on LinkedIn or an article. I'm like, this is great. I think being like having the time to do that as an entrepreneur, as someone else, is so important, where you can still find things that are new, but also that you learn from on your daily basis. I think it's, as humans, we need to continue learning. We can't just say, okay, I arrived, I made, I'm saying not the exact truth, but let's say I made $250,000 of revenue in 2022. I'm done. I tripled my revenue since I started. We can't say, like, that's not very, I'm happy if that's the case for some people, but that's not a finality. If I say that and I'm 30 years old, we can't, like, what am I going to do the next 30 years? Retirement can't just happen. I don't know. I think there's so much that we can learn as humans, and there's so much that's available. That's what's amazing. Like, your background is very different from mine, and yet we're still talking about what today looks like and what tomorrow may look like.
Yeah. And what do people misunderstand about entrepreneurs the most? Like, because a lot of people are interested in making the leap into becoming entrepreneurs, but what do people like misunderstand about the field the most?
I think they have to understand that it's a all in one. You can't pick and choose what you want to do, and it's only going to be that. It's not. I do things that I don't want to do, but I do it because it's part of mm, what I want to build, and then what I want to grow, my company. I think, yeah, it's people saying that, oh, I love marketing, so I'm going to do a marketing company. Or me, I love data, so I'm going to do data company. I'm not just going to code data all day. If I want to have a successful company, I need to do a lot more than that, and that may impact the rest of my daily life. I'm saying that positively. I love it, but you're not going to work 5 hours a day and make a great living being an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? That,
Yeah.
yeah, that's that. It's like you need to. My father always said, my father had his own company. My sister did too. He always say, if your company can make it to 3 years, it's going to be the hardest 3 years of your life. But then after that, you're stable. Like, you've reached that level after 3 years of being rentable and everything, of it's stable level. So then you can choose, do I want to grow or do I want to continue what I'm doing and perfect it? So I'm close to that in 5 months, and
Yeah.
then I will have to make a decision of what I want to do, push it or make it perfect.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm reading these tweets on Twitter where it's like entrepreneurs, majority, I think it averages like 80K a year or something. Some are more the long tail. And then one is like, you call your own boss, you call your own shots, time, income. Would you rather do that, 80K versus, someone else, work for somebody, higher, but kind of, so this like this is like this dichotomy, and it's about the value and the experience and contribute. A great discussion. How can people follow you, contact you, visit your social media, etc.?
Yeah, my company name is datasailing.com. I specialize in extracting data that you collect as a company, whether it's from your sales software, CRM, social media, and everything. And I put all of this into one place to make sure that you have access to what you collect and you can compare. Dataselling.com on LinkedIn and internet. And my name is Augie, Augie. Same LinkedIn, favorite choice. I think it's an amazing tool. Can be a lot, but it's a great tool to discuss and network.
Yeah, and for all the listeners out there, let's thank Augie for a great discussion. Be sure to check him out. He's on LinkedIn and his website, Data Sailing by Augie. And with that, thanks so much for this insightful conversation about entrepreneurship. And thanks for coming on to the podcast. I hope you really enjoyed that wonderful, inspirational, motivational piece. Again, wherever you are listening, if you liked it, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're on everywhere: Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, Audible. And without much ado, be sure to thank this show's sponsors, and we'll see you next week.